Yes, I have the word truth tattooed right there. It's the only tattoo that I have. And it hurt. Who has a tattoo back here? Anybody have a tattoo back here? I mean, it hurt. I felt like I was in the dentist chair. You know, so I will not ever have another tattoo is all I'm going to say. Yes, I have been here 12 years. I was here when ACU was only a little over 200 students. So I've seen it grow a little bit. Been here a long time. And guess what? This is my last year at ACU. I'm retiring. So some of you are going to be really happy that I'm leaving because it is true. I do speak truth. I only made one football player cry yesterday, just one. So that's good. It's kind of a record for me. As the academic director here, I work with students usually in academic distress, but I also work with all ADA students and students with disabilities. So any kind of distress. So I've seen a lot of stuff here at ACU. This is my last semester. I am 64 years old, so I'm retiring, me and my hub. And as I look back on my life as a 64-year-old woman, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that every trial, every tribulation, all the pain, all the suffering that I have experienced in my life, is it making a little feedback? Do I need to go this way? Am I okay? Up higher? Okay. Woo! Then it got really loud. Am I okay? Okay. Anything that I have gone through, I am absolutely convinced it was filtered through the fingers of God's love. God allowed everything in my life to happen for his purposes. Everything. So, and I can say that looking back as an old woman now, old woman to you guys, but I'm not that old. Nothing that's ever happened to me happened by accident. God was never up in heaven saying, oh, whoa, how did that happen to Brenda? No way, where was I? I must have had my eyes closed, you know. No, he was there. He was the orchestrator, he's the conductor, and he's in charge of everything that happens to me. That's what I'm saying. By the time I was 11 years old, we had moved 15 times, and I actually lost count at 15. So somewhere in there, we moved a whole lot. My dad was an alcoholic, so there was job after job after job after job. My parents divorced when I was 7, and my mom remarried by the time I was 8. The last time I spoke to or saw my biological dad was when I was 8 years old. We were about ready to move, me, mom, stepdad, and my little sister. We were going to now move. Then we were in Arizona. I think we were moving then to Maryland. And we were moving. Biological dad was there. He said goodbye to us. And he said, I'll send for you at Easter. Never heard from him again. Never. Not a word. Now, I faithfully wrote to the dude. I mean, I wrote to him every week. I asked him when he was going to send for me. Mom didn't marry a very nice guy, so I was kind of wanting to have some sort of a reprieve, but never heard a word. So I would send my biological dad pictures. I would send him, like my senior year, you know, your senior portraits. I sent him my senior portraits. I sent him all this stuff. And as far as I knew, it kind of went out into the ether land. I mean, I had an address in San Diego, and I just assumed it was going there. Never heard back from him. And my mom never, ever spoke of him. I mean, I didn't even know really, I knew his name, believe it or not, was Charlie Brown. But his name, I knew that. But, you know, there were no pictures. There was nothing. And the only thing that she would ever complain about is that she said that during the divorce, they had to go through divorce court and all this kind of stuff. But she really, really regrets not having gotten the china. Yeah, that was it. So the china and the crystal, because Bio Dad said, oh, don't worry about it. I'll keep it, and I'll give it to Brenda when she's older. And then she always regretted not having kept the china and the crystal. I mean, we're talking a marriage, and that's the only thing she regretted. But that's okay. I mean, yeah, I get it. So I'm now living in Colorado. So we lived in Littleton, Colorado at this point, and I'm 11 years old. And Stepdad wasn't the nicest. Mom was kind of angry. I now have a little half-brother. You know the drill. And came home one day from school, and something's different in the home. It's just weird. So I can't, Mom, what's up? And she had said, my mom was really into the occult. She had been doing some Ouija board stuff and dangling into spiritual worlds and all that. And she was playing on the Ouija board, and the Ouija board told her to go to this church. And so she and her friend walked into the Happy Church by Marilyn Hickey was the pastor. And they walked into this church because the Ouija board told her. Walked into the church, and there was Marilyn Hickey, and she says, I've been waiting for you. And this woman preaches to my mom about the need for Christ in her life. And my mom, then and there, as a 30-some-year-old woman, knelt down and prayed to receive Christ. Right then. My mom, I come home, there's Mom in the kitchen, and Mom tells me about my need for Jesus. And that at the end times, do you want to be there, Brenda, when Jesus comes from the sky and you'll be... And I was like, yeah. And so I went upstairs, knelt, prayed to receive Christ, came down, told my little sister, told her about, she goes upstairs, kneels down, prays to receive. I mean, boom, boom, boom. This whole household is converted within a 24-hour period of time. Yeah. Except my stepdad. He didn't like it that we all became Christians. And he was a verbally and physically abusive man. And it really pissed him off that we all became Christians. So for a while, he forbid us to go to church, and then he would ridicule us. He and I had lots of fights. Imagine having a fight with me. And so we would fight. He would make fun of me being a Christian. He would argue with me about evolution. He would, say that I was only going to college to get my MRS. I'm too stupid to go to college. His nickname for me was FD&H. Fat, dumb, and happy. And come on, we're not fat, not dumb. Happy, okay, I'll get that. But he was not a very nice person. And so we're all Christians now in our household. At this point, I go to high school. We moved to Arizona, and this is where I went actually half of 8th grade year. I went to high school here. I went to college here. I taught school here. So lived here all this time. And again, nothing ever from my biological dad. And then my first child is born, Chelsea Taylor. And the second this baby is born, and I'm holding her in my arms, I knew there is no way, there's no excuse for a dad to walk out on his family. No excuse. I'm holding that baby. She is nothing short of beautiful, but there is no reason why anybody leaves a child. And this bio dad had left me and my sister. Left me. No excuse for that. I wrote to my dad, bio dad, one more time, and I said, I'm done. I'm done writing you. Never heard from you. I don't know if you get these. If you want a relationship, this is the last door that's open. After this, I'm closing it. Never heard anything. Nothing. So then we fast forward. I'm raising my kids, homeschooling my kids with the Turners, loved our kids, loved the Lord, served Christ, taught Bible study, did the whole bit. I'm in a Bible study. This is like 30 years later. And the speaker said, if you were to die today, what's one thing you would regret? One thing. Boom. I thought, not having met my biological dad. I mean, where did that come from? 30 years later, meet the bio dad. So you go into your small groups afterwards, and what did you regret? And I said, what was that, Brenda? So I have to confess that the thing the Lord told me was to meet bio dad. So they prayed for me that the doors would open. And I just thought, yeah, that's a long shot. So me and the kids, we're at the park, I don't know, the next week, whatever, and I run into an old friend. It's Jan. And, Jan, what are you doing these days? She's running a private detective agency. Yeah. So I kind of thought, well, maybe, if I gave you the guy's name and stuff, could you, would you, she goes, well, I need his birth date. So, I tell her I'd get back to her, call my mom, ask for the guy's birth date. She gives it to me. She knew my bio dad's birth date, Charles Stephen Brown, and his birth date. So I call back Jan because, the Lord told me to. So. And I figured this will take a long time. I mean, this is before computers, So, this has to take a long time. Next day, Jan calls me and says, found him. He's in San Diego. And she goes, and I called him, and he answered the phone. And I'm like, holy and so and I said, what did you say to him? And she said, I just hung up, but I wanted to make sure it was a real number, So I just kind of figured, okay, Lord, the next time I'm in San Diego, I'll look him up. I'm a mom, 4 kids. We don't have a lot of money. Homeschooling. The chances of making it over to San Diego, are slim to none. Get a phone call from a girlfriend, and she's got a gig in San Diego, and she wants to do a mommy weekend. She's got a bedroom booked for me. Yeah, the next week. I'm going to San Diego. And I'm doing all this out of obedience. You've got to know that the bio dad is not a cool dude, right? Because if he was, he never would have walked out on us, right? So I know that, but at the same time, the Lord's telling me to meet him. So I'm on Coronado Island in some howdy-towdy, resort thing. And day 1 goes by, and I'm busy. I can't. And my girlfriend comes back to the room. Did you call him? No, I didn't call him today. Second day, she comes back after her conference. Did you call him? No, I didn't call him. She goes, if you don't call him, and now, granted, my girlfriend, she's got flaming red hair, white skin, freckles, blue eyes, and she's like, if you don't call him, I'm calling him, and I'm going to meet him, and he's going to wonder, who in the world am I? She goes, because I don't look like you. So anyway, she goes, if you don't do it, I'm calling him. So finally, the last day, I call him. She's there with me. He answers the phone. Hello, are you Charles Stephen Brown?
Yes, I am.
Were you married once to Barbara Spencer?
Yes, I was.
Do you have a daughter by the name of Brenda Sue?
Yes, I do.
I'm her. Yeah, what else are you going to say? And he didn't exactly say words that I could repeat here in chapel, but he said, I'll be darned. That's what he said. I'll be darned. I'll be darned. And is this really you? Yeah, this is me. Where are you? In San Diego? He goes, can I meet you? Sure, yeah, I'd love to meet you. And he goes, okay, so I tell him where I am. I'm in this, howdy-towdy, high-risey hotel thing on Coronado Island. And I said, I'll meet you for breakfast, 8 a.m. Next day, 8 a.m., I'm sitting there in the foyer, and there's I promise, 100 people going in. This is San Diego, and there's all these men in business suits and women and tourists and hundreds of people, and I'm thinking, I should have told him I'd be wearing a yellow carnation or something. How will he know that I'm me? And then in walks this guy, and he does this. Walks right up to me with his arms out. And I said, how did you know it was me? And he goes, I would know you anywhere. Biological dad. I sat with this man across the table at breakfast, and I remember the weirdness of when I ordered eggs. And he said, oh, you still like eggs? How weird is that? Somebody kind of knows weird things about me. And it was like having breakfast with a distant aunt that you haven't seen for 30 years, so what have you been up to? And I could tell he had a hard life. And like I said, he was an alcoholic. I think, and I suspect he was still drinking. But it was awkward. It was weird. I kept thinking, Lord, why? This guy is no saint. He doesn't have any money. He's not leaving me in his will. What's the deal? And we parted ways. And I remember walking out on the boardwalk there on Coronado Island. They got that rocky wharf, and you can walk along the boardwalk. And I walk along, and I see a dad and his son, and they're riding bikes on the boardwalk. And it broke me. And, I never had a dad that showed me how to ride a bike, how to throw a ball, never came to my games. I didn't have that, and I was supposed to have that. And it broke me to realize I didn't have what the Lord wanted for me, but he filtered all of this through his fingers of love for me. God loved me. And I knew it like I knew it then, that I was cared for. I was tenderly treated my whole life. The Lord was faithful to me. So my biological dad, off and on over the years, I brought the grandkids out to meet him. I met his wife. He'd been remarried for like 30 years. One time we went to his house in San Diego, and maybe I saw him once every 2 or 3 years, just kind of more out of keeping a relationship going. And went into his house, and there, on his little office area, is my senior high school picture in a frame. My pictures. All those pictures I had been sending, all those letters I had been sending, he had been keeping. And I, randomly once asked him, why did you never write back to me? And he had no answer. I mean, he was just a broken, injured, sad man. And he goes, well, I don't like to write. I was like, yeah, there you go. Not good. One day I had heard that my biological dad had passed away. I got a phone call. Oh, hey, this is a cool story. It's not in my notes. Do I have? I do. I have 5 minutes. So anyway, one time with Bio Dad, he was telling me about my uncles. Uncles. And he goes, yeah, you have 3 uncles. So he was the oldest of 4 boys, and 2 of these boys were twins. And he goes, yeah, you have uncles. And so I asked for their addresses. And so I wrote to each, this is all before computers, kids. So I wrote to them all letters in snail mail, and I said, it's me, it's Brenda Sue, and I live in Arizona, and I met my biological dad, and I'd like to meet you. I get a phone call, Uncle Jim from Wheaton, Illinois, and he's crying on the phone. And they all had been told by biological dad, loser, that I didn't want a relationship with them. Brenda just doesn't want a relationship. I am in contact with her. She's great. She graduated college. She's teaching school. He knew all this about me. But so they knew about me, but they were told I didn't want a relationship. Our family goes on vacation to Illinois. I look up my biological uncle, Uncle Jim. And we walk into his house in Wheaton, Illinois, and in the china cabinet is these dishes. And I went, oh, you got Blue Flow. And he goes, my aunt goes, you know Blue Flow? And I go, yeah, I love that. She goes, it was your great-grandmother's. Somewhere in my mind, I remembered great-grandma's china, and then it was the china that I've always admired. How weird is that? And I said, oh, I just love the color blue. And she goes, yeah, it's all of ours favorite color, too. Oh, weird. We sit down and chatting, and they're all teachers. My uncle's teaching at Wheaton High School. My aunt is teaching at the nursing school. All my other uncles are teaching at the collegiate level. I am the only one in my family that I knew of that went to college. My sister, my brother, my mom didn't go to college. I'm the only one. And I'm connecting with this family that I never knew. They're all teachers. They all like blue. And we're all sitting down chatting, and my Uncle Jim says, we know you're a Brown if you like to win. And my kids just start howling because, if you know me, I'm slightly competitive, and I love to win at everything that I do. And my kids are laughing. Oh, yeah, that's Mom. So, I connected to this family. And then I went to the Brown family reunion, and I met my other uncles and my aunts and my cousins and all this family. No bio dad. When he disconnected from me, he disconnected from everybody. But I connected to this entire family, this entire network that I was now a part of. Why did the Lord have my dad, for me to contact my dad? I had family. There it was. I've always wanted family. So then I hear later, my aunt calls me that bio dad has passed away. He basically drank himself to death. And so he dies. And there was a little memorial service. I did not go. There wasn't enough of a relationship there for that. But the next day, some boxes start to arrive to my house. Boxes and boxes. I'm opening boxes. And there's a shawl. There's a candelabra. There's a broken creamer. What is all this stuff, This is crazy. Then I open up, and I find the crystal. The crystal that my mom said she regretted not having kept. He kept the crystal, and he gave it to me at his death. Then I open up another box. It's the china. I got the china. After his death, I got his china. So since then, I've given the china to my daughter, Chelsea Taylor. I've given the crystal to my other daughter, Alexis, my second born. And it's like I got the inheritance that my mom regretted that I didn't have. I got it all after his death. So yes, it was not a pleasant upbringing. My stepdad never did come to the Lord until like his last year of life. He suddenly walked into a church and decided to become a Christian and died a year later. And he said to me, I'm saved. He goes, I got saved. Okay, well, it's good to know, Dad. Thanks for sharing. But my stepdad, I learned how to stand for my faith. I learned the meaning of apologetics. I learned I could argue evolution. I could stand in front of someone when he was going to hit me. And I remember one time in high school, he went to whack me, and I stood there and said, "Go ahead, I dare you." Yeah. And he stopped, and he laughed, and he told my mom he didn't want to have anything else to do with me. And he didn't. But at least he quit hitting me, and I stood up. So yeah, all these trials, all these tribulations, all this pain, all this suffering in my life, I can look back on it and say, yeah, but it's all been filtered by the fingers of a loving God. Yeah, but I know that I am who I am today because of the pain and the suffering and the trials and the tribulations. My closing verse, hey, I hear you guys are in Romans. Of course, you know the verse then. Romans 8:28. And we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. All things work together for good. And I can say that as a 64-year-old woman that nothing has been wasted in my life. All the trials, all the pain, all the suffering. All right, I am going to call up the life leaders is what I do now. The life leaders. Come on up, and if you have anything that you want to pray about, you come forward, and the life leaders will be praying with you. And I'm going to close this off in a word of prayer. Father, we pray for this group here in chapel. I pray, Father, that you manifest yourself in their lives through their hurt, through their pain, through their suffering and their trials and tribulations. I pray, Father, that you make yourself known. In your Son's name, amen.
You ain't drive me in that pit. Hey, nah. Saw my soul inside that famine, said that's it. Grace now. You never flake in the cold winter. I just came to borrow with the gold winners. Fast forward, turn to a road runner. Spirit called me here to go get it. Shed blood, gave me lemonade on this cold Bennett.